Hi everyone, this is Duncan from the podcast Under the Stairs. This particular video you're checking out just now has the archival recording attached to it. The archival recording is from our podography, I think that's the term that we use, and it will feature reviews of movies that fall under the 88 Films Italian Collection series. Now, the vast majority of reviews we've done over the last 5 years have been in audio format and published on our RSS feed for the podcast. We are transitioning over to give you access to all those reviews right here on YouTube under a playlist. Now, we're doing that because we're about to do our first video recording of 88 Films Italian Collection release, that being Tentacles. So there's plenty of opportunity to delve into the back catalogue of the reviews here. And if you like what you hear, then please hit subscribe on the channel, leave your comments below, and check out the rich catalogue of over 1,200 episodes we have on podcasts Under the Stairs on any podcatching device or Spotify that you use. So stick around, enjoy the episode, and I'll speak to you very soon. And welcome back, ladies and gents. So you've just heard the trailer for Hatchet for The Honeymoon. This is disc number 69 in the Italian collection from 88 Films. The blurb on their website reads as thus. From director Mario Bava, the godfather of Italian horror, comes Hatchet for The Honeymoon, a superlative early 1970s slasher which places us with the erstwhile filmmaker back in the realm of the giallo feature, a cinematic subgenre he practically invented. With echoes of Psycho from 1960 and Peeping Tom from 1960, this unsettling production sees troubled protagonist John Harrington, played by Stephen Forsyth, turning into a real-life serial killer. Refused a divorce by his uncaring wife and haunted by childhood trauma, John takes out his murderous frustration on a string of would-be brides who innocently cross his path. Undoubtedly an influence on later movies like Maniac from 1980 and a host of other chillers, this often overlooked piece of one of Europe's finest is a smart, beautifully styled, gory delight. The particular limited edition version is limited to 3,000 units only and includes a rigid slipcase with new artwork from Colin Murdoch. as a 40-page perfect bound book featuring Don't Stain the Staircase by Barry Forshaw and Un-American Psycho on the trail of the European movie Maniac by Andrew Graves also contains an A3 fold-out poster. It is a remastered HD transfer from the 35mm internegative with additional cleanup performed by 88 Films. It's a high-definition 1080p presentation at 185:1 aspect ratio that contains a 2.0 dual mono DTS HD master audio from the English soundtrack. Has an audio commentary by Giallo cinema expert Troy Haworth and Nathaniel Thompson. It has Meet the Bavas, an interview with renowned director Lamberto Bava. Working with the master, an interview with assistant cameraman G. Lorenzo Bagliatali. It has the English trailer and a reversible sleeve with classic poster artwork. The technical specs on this are it's region locked region B, the audio is DTS HD ME mono, picture, like we mentioned before, is 1080p HD 185:1, the runtime is 1 hour and 28 minutes approx, and language and subtitles both English. Where to start with this one? So this is like, if you sat down and did a list of Bava movies, if you were doing your heavy hitters in the kind of Mario Bava lineup, Hatchet for the Honeymoon might not exist on that heavy hitter list to the film layman, so to speak. That's to say, this isn't at the same time though a deep cut, because it isn't. This is a name that's bandied around quite a lot, so chances are you may have even heard of this movie. It somehow, for some weird reason, seems to be conflated, and I've been guilty of this myself with $5 for an August Moon. I think it's because they come out within spitting distance of each other, and they are essentially latter-day Jolly by Bava, who by 1970 had kind of washed his hands of it. This movie certainly is more in line with the kind of slasher side of things, even to an extent the more thrillery side of things, than it is necessarily giallo, in that you know who the killer is relatively early on, and it's the killer narrates part of this movie as well. So, you know, there's like, I'm not spoiling anything here. That's the way things are, ladies and gents. It's probably more noted for all the drama behind the scenes than it is necessarily for all the graft that you actually see in the final version. The plot synopsis for the movie seemed to change as and when it was being filmed. Apparently there was quite a bit of toing and froing between the cast and crews as well. Location issues about, you know, just in general for the production caused some stuff to go awry. The film infamously ran out of money, so it was kind of put on hold for a while, and then when it was completed, it took a bit of time to shift. So you could say, in theory, this movie, for the most part, exists in a bubble where it was being made at the time, like in the late 60s, and didn't make its way to 1970, and at that point Argento is about to kind of reform and recontextualize what a giallo is, make it very, very popular. And there's something about this particular movie which feels like this is Bava almost starting to see the writing on the wall for his contribution to that subgenre, and not want to be pigeonholed as already starting to move things into a realm that we would, you know, kind of more notably look at as a slasher. So, like I say, it's not your stereotypical slasher as we would recognise. At the same time, it's not necessarily a giallo as we would call them either. It kind of sits somewhere in between the lot. I mean, it seems to be a movie that didn't set the world on fire. We should also say Bava's films didn't necessarily set the international world on fire. He's a director who really sadly didn't get any of the notoriety or any of the pomp and circumstance that the guy should have deserved in life until he was dead. All this acclaim that we now see as people saying, you know, he's the master of Italian horror. It all came posthumously when people kind of refound his catalogue of work through re-releases, obscure VHS rips, and now the kind of Blu-ray market with the boutique labels releasing these titles in a value which brings out the best of the filmmaker's ability. So didn't really do much. It is one of my personal faves from the Maestro, if I'm honest, mostly because it's totally absurd. It once again kind of sees him go back to the world of fashion like he'd done in Blood and Black Lace. It has a lot of dry wit and humour, and it's very, very silly in parts, which, to be honest, I know some people might not pick up on this, but that's Bava. Bava had a wicked sense of humour, and it's through his films, and it's always been through his films. You only have to see the end of Bay of Blood, for example, to kind of see the humour in the last shot there, or watch a movie like Black Sabbath, for example, where you will sit down and see, and the Italian version anyway, the kind of the credits of that one being very tongue-in-cheek and very kind of very knowingly a filmmaker reveling in his ability to create scare and terror, but also understanding the cathartic nature of that and how it can, after a scare, bring a bit of levity. How many times have you been scared or, you know, terrified and then laughed it off afterwards as that kind of release of tension comes out? And Bava was full of that, and this movie's full of it as well. And most of that comes down to Stephen Forsyth's, you know, portrayal here of the character John Harrington, who's absolutely brilliant. Laura Betty, who plays the wife in this one, Mildred Harrington, is a really difficult woman to get on with from John's vision. And he understands it's a loveless marriage, he's not happy. She also understands it's a loveless marriage, but seems committed to making this guy's life a misery. That's not to say that this guy is a saint by any stretch of the imagination. He totally isn't. And he essentially is desperately trying to get a divorce, which she will not grant him. And as a result of this, it looks like John's being propped up. Like, he's living in... This is actually like a story... I don't know why my voice went as high-pitched and squeaky as that, but this is like a story that will work its way through quite a lot of movies that you will see kind of post this. I believe it was probably a trait before this, but the man being driven to terrible things because he doesn't hold the money. It's his wife that holds the money, and he's trying to find a way out. And if only he can get rid of his wife, then maybe he could be happy. And there's a bit of the kind of telltale heart in this movie, a bit of Edgar Allan Poe, certainly a bit of kind of Agatha Christie in here, a little bit of Peeping Tom Full Show. But yeah, he tries to kill off Mildred, and like everything from that point just kind of goes awry. In between all that, he is kind of constantly meeting these very attractive models for his fashion business, and then ultimately doing a bit of a maniac on them, if you know what I mean. The movie is beautifully shot. It's a Bava movie, so you can't say anything negative about the cinematography. I think the script is fun, even though you can see the bits that appear to be tagged on. You know, they're not necessarily in a way that kind of necessarily makes sense overall. You also get because of the industry it's involved in, you do get a bit of that Blood and Black Lace and a bit of that Maniac, movies that are almost all separated by a decade from one to the other and then the other to that, which is kind of fun when you sit down and see that it's still a trope that we're going back to in different ways and shapes and forms. Like the kind of slow break insanity of a character who was already insane in John Harrington is why you watch this movie. His kind of back and forth with Inspector Russell, played by Jesus Puente. This being, I think this was possibly a kind of an Italian-Spanish co-production, if memory serves. And when you get those interactions, it's a lot of fun. It's not that far away from Arbogast having to deal with Norman Bates. It's that kind of back and forth tete-a-tete that makes some of the best kind of murder mysteries a lot of fun. But once again, we're getting it from the killer's perspective, like that he, as what he believes in an almost American Psycho sort of way with the whole Paul Allen situation, that he's convinced he's killed off his wife, yet is she still here? There still seems to be a presence that she's still here. What's actually going on? He's an unreliable narrator and an unreliable witness for the viewer to work its way through. I also really enjoy this, that you get a lot of kind of the backstory, a lot of filling in the blanks, but this isn't one of these ones where at the end we get the entire breakdown a la Psycho, or Bird with the Crystal Plumage actually. Bava saves us a bit of that, where we're getting the full psychological breakdown of why John did what he did. Because I don't want that in a movie like this. On top of that, you have, like I said before, amazing cinematography done by the great man himself. So Bava is directing this. He is behind the camera, so you can tell the shots are fucking gorgeous. I love those aspects of it. You really get an idea of... You really get an idea how talented Bava was. Because I'd like you get... If you look at someone like Argento, for example, I don't know why I'm going into the weeds on this, but indulge me for a second. If you look at Argento is a great director, and he's great for composing where the camera's going to go, but he's not shooting the movie. Bava is doing this as well as all the effects that he brings to it with the touch and lighting and art. He's behind that as well, which is kind of amazing. It just, once again, from my perspective, gives you a clean view of how great this guy actually was. You're just like operating on a completely different level to everyone else, which that's what we want. We want our directors to be incredible. We want our directors to be, these auteurs, so to speak. Like when they reach a certain level, if you're going to call someone the master of something, what is it they're a master of? Directing people in a movie, or the more involved behind? When we think of people like Tarantino, for example, Tarantino's worked out the music, he's worked out, he's almost storyboarded things in his head fully with a script, and then he's directing it on top of that. That's what makes him an auteur. What makes Bava an auteur is he came from a cinematography background and also lighting and art design. And then he just so happened to be a really fucking good director who could take stories and kind of translate them really well on the screen. Even a lesser story comes across as credible in the hands of Mario Bava. It's one of the reasons his name stands up. It's one of the reasons I love him. It's one of the reasons in the 80s so many American directors were kind of copying his moves or referencing him specifically as he influence on their work. And that's kind of why I think that a movie like Hatchet for the Honeymoon, even with all its flaws, all the issues we mentioned at the start, and all it does it hold together, it's a fun romp. It's got a lot of kind of, at times kind of campy, at other times very ostentatious sense of humour and design and execution. And its runtime is relatively short, and it does fly in. And I love the back and forth. Like I say, Inspector Russell and John Harrington is a great back and forth. When you see how much of a pain in the testicle Laura Betty is with Stephen Forsyth on screen, it works for me. I love it. It's awkward and it's kind of great. Last thing to mention is the score is awesome in this one. Santa Maria Romantelli, I think is how you pronounce his name, delivers a great score. Not amongst the greatest that Bava had to use. It's not a Morricone score by any stretch of the imagination, but it works really well. It holds the movie together. It doesn't overpower anything. It works. It works really well. So yeah, I think this movie is fucking great. I think this version of the movie is fucking great. 88 Films really have done a bang-up job in the restoration work they've done here. It looks beautiful. Once again, it helps that they're restoring like Bava's eye on screen. All Bava's movies look fucking great, even like 60 years after the camera was turned off. They still look incredible. and you get that here. Special features, maybe not as packed as you would imagine for a special release of this, but I had the audio commentary on and off in certain sections. It's always great to hear Nathaniel Thompson and Troy Holworth talk. They've got great chemistry and they know their shit, so you're in safe hands there. But the interview with Lamberto Bava, son of Mario Bava, is kind of awesome. I've got a soft spot for Lamberto, and even G. Lorenzo Baglatali, he delivers a just great trivia, just great like insight into what it was like working for the great man back in the day. Hatchet for the Honeymoon for me scores really high. I love this movie. Not to the point that I'm going to give it a 5, because that's reserved in the Bava catalogue for the truly greats, but it's not far off it. It's spitting distance at a 4.5. I watch this movie like easily 2-3 times a year and I wouldn't ever get sick of it, even though it's not a perfect movie and at times you can very visibly see the fault lines. It's still hugely entertaining, very well executed, really well acted, and a big ball of darkly comedic fun. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 for Hatchet for the Honeymoon.